One of the one of the themes, Conjoy, that came out of that little blurb or that little short video of that gentleman talking about intuition, right? And he mentioned a key word that I've been saying ever since I started first putting up videos, is living through your heart and your soul. And another word is called without having to think about it. I think I did a video when I was in Grants Pass about not having to think about it, because if you have to think about it, you just slow yourself down. Your vibrational speed will not be the same. Okay? Which essentially means when you're living through your heart and your soul, then you naturally, the energy, the spiritual flow, and the form, and that's the form, and the form and the flow is the geometry. So in other words, the math and the geometry is built in. When you're experiencing being on fire, you're running at a high rate of speed. You're vibrating at a very high rate of speed, and that's called your core. Like the nuclear core, right? I call it a blast furnace. And that is a firewall, right? Most folks know you run an operating system, a planetary motherboard, you got a firewall. And what does a firewall do? It prevents viral codes, bugs in the system from getting through and infecting you, okay? Which is enter into your software, right? Because it does not want, the intention of their energy is to break through your shield, slow you down. So you're not learning as fast because we're on a learning journey. So this is where you get into the difference, torque speed difference between rising stars and falling stars, rising consciousness, lower consciousness. You're naturally going to learn faster when you're connected to the higher state of consciousness, like a goddess in the planet. Okay, which basically means teachers that are learners who are teachers who have been there and done that because of the journey that they've been on. So you're learning through your teachers. That's why everything that I learn, I give back to my teachers. So we're choosing the teachers to be with that we're learning true at a higher rate of speed. So fallen consciousness goes after those that are experiencing a higher rate of speed. Why? Because they've learned how to master energy to become powerful living stars. Now we become the source of food. The ones in the lower states that can't get out of there are feeding on. Now we become a source of food, which is a source of energy. So now you get into the toughest class, right? Which is learning how to master your energy so that you don't end up as food, right? And so you see how that works between falling consciousness and rising consciousness. And the simplicity of that is that they're at war in their own mirror. And that becomes what? A black mirror. Which means they've lost all their light. Now they're in darkness, dark essence, shadow beings, right? So now they realize, hey, they've lost their one connection. Their mirror went black. Right? So you can see how this works across the electromagnetic energy spectrum between one and the other. Right? Between negative and positive magnetic polarity. When they're in perfect balance and you're experiencing zero, which is no charge, right? Pre-matter phase. So when you're experiencing being in the pre-matter and you're on fire because you're experiencing so much love in your heart, then your heart is your motor. Your heart and your soul is your vortex. I'll call it a light wheel, a hub server. Right? So when you learn to integrate and become a polarity integrator, and your oversoul is a polarity integrator, you're naturally able to transmute anything less than what love is. That doesn't belong there because you realize love is what you are. You're running on love energy. Right? So you're with the one. You're with the one, the first. So that's a monopole. The single pole, the first line of communication, the first musician, the first sound magician. That's how simple it is. So you don't have to think about what it is that you are. You already know what you are. You're what love is. That's why if you would have asked me when I was 11 years old, what are you? And I was asked that. Okay? I'm a spiritual being. I'm a love energy being. The spiritual energy that I run with is called love. Because I'm on fire. Right? So you're burning off. Your firewall's burning off what doesn't belong there. In order to do what? Maintain your shield. Your crystal spiral. The first one. Right? Right? So it stands to reason, using basic log scales or log scale distribution tables, right? Water tables, water columns, that if you want to see more of the universe that you're giving love to, you want that core, which is your soul core, your solar arcing core, the center point of a sphere, the biosphere, to be running at a high rate of speed, which is a higher state of consciousness. Right? So you're not held captive by something that's lower in form. Because they're going in the other direction. Which means they're not learning as fast as you are. And why? Because they're holding energy captive as a source of food. So they realize you're learning at a higher rate of speed. That's why they hate us. Because they're held captive by something that we're not. Because they are refusing to let go of energy. That's a sickness. Because it doesn't even meet the basic logic meter. Right? When you know it began out of eternal love, and you're experiencing something that isn't experiencing that, I cry. And it's natural for me to cry. Because you realize the eternal gift that you experience through your own heart and soul, they don't experience that. So if you know that that's what it began with, it will always return to that. Because that's what it started with. Right? So now you realize why this is a massive triage center for healing. Why it's a noble Nomi planet. So they refer to the stealth code, which means it can't be detected. Otherwise, the planet could go into a free fall state and not recover itself. Which means it couldn't recalibrate itself. Bye. It's gone. And we'll just head to ultimately implosion. We'll start all over again. We was not going to let that happen, right? So stealth code was invoked. So you see, by virtue of what I did in 2016 to light myself on fire. So you know how to recalibrate your original equipment. Right? For the work that you do while you're here. On behalf of the one, which is what the law is. So we represent the highest law because that's the highest one. The highest one. The first one. I know. So when you're living through your heart, it comes natural. That's so we're on a learning journey. Remember the old saying, when I grew up as a kid, there's always something new to learn? Yeah, which means there's always something new to create that's never been created before. And you share it with others. And this is what made it counter space intuitive when I was a little kid, that I don't charge people. I don't charge this, and this is what actually made it difficult. It's one of the reasons I went into the service end of things, right? I have no inclination to start my own business, start selling things. It's not the nature of my spirit or my soul energy. Not when you realize that love is eternal, free energy. Right? Which means you already experienced, you got everything that you need. So when you experience that, you realize I don't need any money. So money becomes counterintuitive. But there's another trap with that, right? Where you're held captive by something that is digital or virtual, which means it's fake because it's running on artificial light, which is dead energy. So now you get back to remember the haves and the have-nots, and the torque speed differential between those that are, their minds are held captive to needing and accumulating more electrons as their source of energy, consciousness, security. And then there are those that are perfectly happy, right, in giving energy away, in love and service to others. So that means they've learned through their lessons how that works, to be an accelerator and not an inverter. Right? Because an inverter is needing energy. An accelerator is giving it away. So basic logic tells you it's probably a learning pathway to become an accelerator rather than an inverter, so that you're not needing energy from others. Instead, you're the giver of energy to others. That's what stars do, right? So now we're back to living stars and falling stars. Living rising consciousness, falling states of stars consciousness. And you can see this in Hollywood. Those are dead stars, right? But they put the star up there, right? I'm a star. So you can see the difference between one and the other. So this is all the masquerading stuff. They invert the language and they present that to us, believing that this is the reality that we live in and trying to fool us that it's real, when in fact it's inverted. So what they do is swap the difference between the inner you, the outer hologram, as if the outer hologram is the means to which we learn, rather than learning through what we are, which is our heart and our soul, following our journey and realizing it starts from within you. Because what you see in the hologram, we're the generator of that. You wouldn't be able to see anything in your mirror if it didn't already start with you. You couldn't run the codes. You couldn't run the math and the codes, the geometry, and the form and flow of that energy. So in other words, what we see in our mirror is by virtue, in this case, of what we're held captive to. Right? Just like when I mentioned when I go out during the day and I work with the sun, I see the impact. In other words, the sky changes colors. Physically changes colors. I'm seeing the work being done, and the color that I'm seeing in the mirror and the sky is by virtue of what I'm doing to make that happen. That is that's called directed energy mechanics. You are directly affecting what you see in your own mirror. That you become the generator of the plasma waves that are making that happen. So you can see that you can change the reality. You have your soul arcing consciousness with your spirit, the ability to change the reality of using the core blast furnace of your own soul in which to make it happen, rather than being held captive to who they are that is inverted, which means going in the other direction, which is going down instead of up. So they don't know the difference between up and down and east and west. Which way am I going? Right? The vertical and the horizontal plane. So in the center point of that, the vertical and the horizontal is in perfect balance, equidistance, and you're the center point. You're the core reactor. It's the center point of that cross inside that sphere. When your consciousness is exactly centered in perfect balance of an eternal star, that's the first atom cell. That's the first line of communication, the first spiral. We're off and running. So from a healing perspective, you see, like when I was a child, I realized it was a massive job. Right? I didn't know how I was going to function. Because it was just so, it's just bad. You know, you know what it means? Like when a firefighter is like a captain, and you get called out, hey, you know, report of a forest fire or an overturned tanker truck with 5,000 gallons of ethyl methyl bad stuff. Okay, you're already starting to form a picture in your head, even though you're not there yet, of how bad it is. How many people are injured? How many people are running around that are on fire? You got no idea. So imagine you come up over the hill, and there you can see the smoke, black, thick smoke billowing up, and it's expanding at a very high rate of speed. You know, holy shit, this is bad. You're not there yet, but you're gonna be there. So you know when you get there, we're the ones that gotta bring that back to a state of what? Harmony, rhythm, balance. So in order to get back to that, which is before that event happened, you're the ones that's gonna fix it, right? So you see how that sort of works, you know, which is really being fearless. You know, I learned this from fire, right? There's an eternal spirit of fire in me, okay? But I know what fire can do, which means I honor and respect fire, obviously. The first line of communication, because I know what it can do, because I've certainly chased it right? And been in places where, whoa, surrounded by fire and nowhere else to go, right? But you're in what's called a safe zone, right? There's enough space between you, like you're on mineral soil, but you're surrounded by 175-foot trees that are all torching all around you, right? And you understand that there was an old saying in the Forest Service: be alert, keep calm, think clearly, act decisively. And what is the operative word out of that? Be alert, be calm. Everything's going to be just fine, right? What's the worst that could happen to you? Right? You still got your soul and your spirit. You're on fire. Your consciousness. So that was a cute video. That was a cute video because it's really true. You know, you follow your pathway. You know, it was very challenging when I was a little kid because everybody's always trying to tell you what to do. You know, the rule-based functions. You're supposed to follow us off a cliff. You got to do it the way we're doing it because we're obeying the rules. And it starts in childhood from your parents, right? And then it gets reinforced when you go into baby school, you know, at nursery school, elementary school. Follow the rules, follow the rules, follow the rules. This is all programming. They don't want you to be free. They don't want you living out in nature. They don't want you grounded and having a relationship with the great living spirit of Mother Earth. So, in other words, you're held captive by what they are. So you become a battery slave to what they are, that they feed on in order to keep that system running. So they plan this stuff way, way, way in advance. Because they go to schools to learn how humans think and humans feel. What we are attracted to, what we're not attracted to. Okay? So they got a long laundry list of things that they know about human angelics, right? So they know all the weak points, they know all the strong points. So in other words, this is a war strategist. It's deciding to go to war against human angelics. That's exactly right. So the more that it learns about us, right, the more information that it has to make a counterstrike against us. That's your AI. It's a binary war gamer. Gaming for the energy. So whenever I put stuff up like this, shit happens. You know what happened last night? A cop shows up at this place and said, hey, we got a 911 call. Well, I certainly didn't call him, right? And the guy that lives upstairs said, well, I didn't call him. Well, who do you think did? And why do you think that would happen? See, the whole idea has to do with rule-based functions and what the symbol of a police officer represents, right? Right? Lower consciousness, higher consciousness, draining energy, anything that it can do to make a counter strike. Letting you know, stop putting those videos up there. Or more counter space moves are going to be made against you, right? So it's just like, please, grow up. Grow up in the universe, right? Love is the law. But you see how this works. It doesn't have a soul. Knowing one from the other. One that does and one that doesn't. So that's why when I was a little kid, it's like, don't expect much. Right? The best it can do is copy, and that's all it is, a recording system. You know, record the data, record the data, record the data. Now we got access to the data. Now we got access to the data. Right? So you see how it operates. Right? It's sick. It's mentally ill. I mean, that's pretty obvious, right? So you see when you have somebody's consciousness that's integrated with something that's artificial, which is a dead life magnet, why would anybody do that? Ask them. You know, why would they do that? Wouldn't they prefer to be integrated with a soul and a spirit in order to experience being one with all creation? So be able to experience more of everything we're giving love to, which means, man, this universe goes on forever because the energy that we're using to experience it with is what love is, which is what we are. So you know that something that's dead has got a finite shelf life. Now, in my book, as a little kid, that doesn't seem very intelligent to me, but that's not for me to decide. That's the whole idea of being in a classroom, right? Is choosing the teachers, the ones you're with. And when you're living through your heart and your soul, you're always with the one. So you know the journey that you're on. You know why you're here. The higher intelligence that we're connected to that is highly creative, it's on fire to create. And when you're on fire to create, you're running the highest state of awareness because you're with the one. So you're with the one you're with. So you know what's going on. You know why you're here, and you're following your heart. So you implicitly trust who you are. Right? Because that's who you are. You're an individual. Right? Your soul and spirit is unique. Right? So you follow your heart. So your heart knows. Your heart feels. You know, it's what you feel. And the next thing you know, you're on fire and nothing's holding you captive. You're burning up. You're burning up. You know what I mean? You're burning up. That's a hot star. And that's a hot firewall. And that's your shield. That's what protects your crystal spire. Your heart and your soul. The essence of your spirit, girl. Have a great day. Be good to yourselves.